Yeah, ready. Hello, everyone. This is a good day to have a good day and a good excuse to have this session today, as today marks the anniversary of Buddha turning the wheel of Dharma. Of course, there is no really time that Buddha's wheel is not turning. We are conscious of learning to walk according to the teachings. So therefore, but nevertheless, yeah, we are going to do a specials. I will just do a short talk in helping everybody to refresh their memory of how sacred and precious and useful the Dharma practice is. And this all happened as a result of the young prince Siddhartha not only leaving home, but not only meditating, but not only getting enlightenment, but actually giving the teachings. So from 563 before Christ, he was born in Lumbini, and then at the age of 36, he attained enlightenment. That's a very great achievement. And then as a result of that, he gave teachings. And teachings he gave became the most everlasting gift that whole world can use as the most effective remedy to suffering and its causes. So these days, these days we are talking about 2,565 years since that occurred, and now there are people are celebrating anniversary of such and such a pandita or such and such lineage gurus or masters or gurus. All of these celebration that is happening around the world in memory of their teachers are only as a result of the Buddha giving these teachings. So I would like to therefore help people to rejoice that how each and every one of us who have the Dharma and connection with our teacher and lineages and their masters, and we get inspired to practice. And this is all because Buddha set the wheel of Dharma in motion. And the setting the wheel of Dharma in motion really means that the wheel of Dharma is a form of vehicle. And without the Dharma, wheel of Dharma in our life, turning us toward the right direction, people are turning their wheel of life of samsara in the vicious cycle of opposite, of self-importance, greed, hatred, and ignorance, and so on. So therefore, the celebration of the turning the wheel of Dharma, we call Choekhor Duchen in Tibetan. Choekhor means the wheel of Dharma. Duchen means great anniversary. So while this great anniversary of the Buddha's turning of the wheel of Dharma is celebrated on the 4th day of the 6th Tibetan lunar month, that's why it's called Trukpa Tseshi. Trukpa means the 6th, and Tseshi means 4th. So the 4th of the 6th. And a 4th of the 6th means 4th day of the 6th lunar month. So we have, if you really look carefully, why it falls on the 4th of the 6th lunar month is that's exactly 49 days after the attaining of enlightenment, which is the 15th of the 4th month. So Sagadawa. You may recall celebrating Sagadawa earlier last month. So the full moon of Sagadawa till today is exactly 49 days. And so the Buddha's attainment of enlightenment in Bodh Gaya was intervened by 7 weeks of Buddha not giving any express verbal teachings. Buddha's coming to the world itself as a teaching. So don't get ourselves wrong in thinking Buddha's teaching only constitute verbal expression. Buddha's whole life is teaching. His mere presence, his merely coming to the world is a teaching. And so every single activities of Buddha is a teaching. But because we are so deaf or blind, if I may say, or ignorant, worse still, of knowing and hearing and seeing Buddha teach, unless Buddha spoke the words. And that's why the 4th of the 6th month is celebrated as the actual anniversary of turning the wheel of Dharma. So what does turning the wheel of Dharma means? When you are able to walk towards the path of Dharma, I think mostly not just outer behavior, because quite a lot of people think that a person walking towards the Dharma means they have to shave, they have to don on a robe, as of that means that only a small fraction of Buddhists, maybe not even 6 or 7% of Buddhist population are trying to walk towards the path of Dharma because they have shaven the hair and beard and don on a robe and live on alms. How many people do that? Even those who have shaven their head and don on robes, they don't live on those very strict Vinaya principles anymore. So let's not reduce and overrate the Vinaya of the monastics, because we have to secularize and universalize the Dharma in the 21st century. This is the very great message of His Holiness Dalai Lama, that how to make the Buddhism relevant to his present life. Most traditional Buddhists will practice Buddhism for future lives in order to secure a place in Sukhavati, or in order to be his first disciple of Maitreya, and all these kind of beliefs emphasizing to the future lives. Sure, who will need to doubt about the efficacies of Dharma practice in future lives? Because if you believe in law of karma, it will of course have the natural consequence of good you do, or whatever you do in this life will follow into the next life. But we need to be more practical and pragmatic than that by looking at how to bring, relativize, how to pragmatically use Dharma that is actually beneficial, that in the witness mind of our own selves. So therefore, turning the wheel of Dharma means how much the person in us have actually turned our life around, not into the wrong direction, a vicious cycle of samsara that is under the sway of ignorance, that we are selfish, ignorance that we are grasping to things as real and permanent, and ignorance that the samsara actually has any happiness, because samsara doesn't. Samsara has only temporary pleasure, which is quickly sours and turns into bitter sufferings. So therefore, we need to be very much turned. We have to be completely changed in knowing if we are walking the path of the Dharma, means we have to completely transform our attitude to the worldly, samsaric, materialistic, self-important, me first, these kind of attitudes that we have. As long as person who has heard the Dharma, it need to hurt their wrong ways. So much so, they no longer are going to the vicious cycle, but instead they are walking towards the path of the Dharma. Path of the Dharma means that they are actually shifting their mind away from the suffering. For me, one thing, and this life, another, selfishness, another, and trying to grasp onto things as a permanent when they are not. Buddha taught, if you can pay heed to the Dharma, everything is impermanent. But people in Dharma are complaining things are changing. But they are still, again, forgot that things are changing, things are impermanent. So they stop complaining that things are not remaining the same, or things are not staying the same. Nothing does. It doesn't mean that when you practice Dharma so that things become permanent. You have completely misunderstood. Dharma is to cope with the change and accept the change and let go your attachment to fixations, whether they are things or people or status or nature of relationship or health or lack of it, whatever it is. You need to drop those wrong views of grasping as if you wanted to keep things as good as you previously wanted. What is it? What is it that you wanted to keep things? Because nothing is keepable. Nothing can be kept. Why? If you have heard the Dharma, it's all things impermanent. And because if you have heard all things impermanent, then even your temporary pleasure or temporary status or well-being or harmony and whatever, or good situation, or whether somebody's working well with you or not, even if that doesn't work, it's not their fault, nor is your fault. It's nature of things. Now, if you have heard that, that's the Dharma. Wheel of Dharma is turning in you, and this will prevent you from grasping and clinging and anxiety. As a result of that, it will soothe you. It will heal your mind from clinging to things as real and permanent. And that's real. That's better than shaving your hair. But that's actually better. That's actually better than not only shaving your hair, but that actually will drop your wrong views. If shaving the hair symbolizes renouncing some old ways, but this shaving the hair is easy, but shaving the wrong view is much harder. That's what Jisen Trokpa Gyaltsen said in his great song of experience, that without shaving or culling the wrong views, what's the point of shaving beard and hair in the name of Dharma? Yeah, superficially people shave the hair and put on the robe, but what's the point of actually not doing the real turning the wheel of Dharma? If the wheel of Dharma is turning, then you need to walk towards the Dharma and heed to the Buddha and listen to his teaching, and then see how quickly it takes away your neurosis and greediness and self-importance and attachment and the wrong view and inability to accept the changes. For instance, people are complaining about all the changes, whether it's climate or whether it's due to the pandemic, or whether it's due to the war, whatever. These things are all in inevitable nature of samsara. When the sentient beings, and particularly powerful, destructive leaders, when they get their mind spun by strong greed for self-importance, his power become completely whipped to direct his country or direct his power in the wrong direction. So the war is inevitable, because when you have greed and hatred, swayed individual leaders who are running powerful nations, then it will naturally bring wars. And so therefore, when there is a war, of course we wish there was no war, there was peace. But even when there is a war, we can humbly accept that as a consequences of greed, hatred, and ignorance of the very human beings who are perpetuating that. And therefore we develop compassion to those people who are involved in that. So the turning the wheel of Dharma is, we need to turn our mind and make ourselves hop onto the vehicle of Dharma, so that we do not get stranded and get clogged into the mud pool of samsara. So what does turning the wheel of Dharma means? That you are being pulled out of the mud of samsara. Who does the pulling? Your own mind's awareness and heedfulness to the Dharma, through listening, through meditating, through contemplating, and through rationalizing the teachings, then makes us to be pulled out of the mud pool and any kind of treacherous road situation. And then we get what we call a rescue from the tyranny of poor me, tyranny of greed, tyranny of miserness, tyranny of impatience, and anger, and laziness, and so on. And then what do we do? As a result of that, all the antithesis of the above. Instead of self-importance, one sees the importance of cherishing others, thinking of others who are less fortunate than we are. When you started to think about that, as soon as you think about somebody else's well-being, because that the Dharma says that you should think for the benefit of others, whatever you do. Buddha himself decided to renounce his comfortable, powerful position of a king. It was totally comfortable. It was nothing wrong with that. But he knew that was just for him. It was good. But what was the good use of that just for him when he is not being useful, proving useful to the benefit of others? Hence, he renounced his comfort, a palace life and a royal life and a householder's life. And therefore, when he taught the will of Dharma, he actually have already done the transcending of samsara in his life. He attained enlightenment. So this is my theory, that there's only one enlightened teacher in the world whose anniversary we must celebrate. Even if I celebrate anniversary of, say, His Eminence Choekhor Duchen Rinpoche, it's still because Choekhor Duchen Rinpoche himself was a devotee of Shakyamuni Buddha. If it wasn't the teachings of the Buddha, why would I celebrate Choekhor Duchen Rinpoche's life? Because he was completely transformed by dedicating his life selflessly as a Shalukushang son who gave all his life for the sake of the Dharma. It became the abbot of Nalanda Monastery, and then practiced and studied and meditated all his life, and then became the great contributor and leader he became. So you can see every single anniversary of the lineage masters are only celebrated because they are all inspired by one and only enlightened teacher. So therefore, if we remember that, then our devotion to the human teachers becomes inspired by enlightened teachers. So, but we do not try to see the enlightened qualities of the perfect enlightened qualities of the enlightened one in the human teachers. So you don't idolize. Our human teachers are still human beings. They still have karma. That's why they're born with aggregates. Their body is subject to illness. Their body is subject to die and suffer the cramps, suffer the pain, suffer the indigestion. So do not idolize the conventional human teachers as perfectly enlightened. They are not. That kind of concept should not be introduced into everyday Buddhism. So therefore, when we talk about celebrating the turning wheel of Dharma, we need to see how the basic fundamental tenets of Buddhist teachings, such as that all samsara is unsatisfactory because of the delusion and karma, which is the true origin of suffering. So when Buddha taught in the first sermon, there's for truth of suffering and true origin of suffering. Truth of suffering is the nature of all existence. Means it is nature of existence. So what if you have suffering, it is by nature, the nature of life is suffering. So it's nothing uniquely to you or someone else doing to you, or you couldn't have done anything different to avoid the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, death, separation from the loved ones, not getting what you want, losing what you have. All of these things are perennial sufferings. These are sufferings, that is, whether you talk about 4 sufferings of human birth or 8 sufferings of the world at large, all of these, the nature of existence. But where does these 8 sufferings or four sufferings, or any one of the sufferings come when we least want them. They do not have to originate unless the causes themselves has been consummated. The truth of origin is one's own unconscious actions under the sway of affliction. And these two, the truth of one's own unskillful action under the sway of negative action, under the sway of afflictions, is due to ignorance. So the true origin of suffering, that's what Buddha said. The suffering must be understood, its origin must be discovered. You must recognize which is the origin. Because when we do not recognize the true origin, even though we don't want the suffering, what we do perpetuate just that, because we are unconscious of the cause and effect relationship. When you know the cause, what you're doing will produce this result, of course, then you deliberately try to create the causes that will produce this result. People want happiness, but they don't have the cause of happiness because they don't have selflessness. They don't have understanding everything's impermanent. They don't think that everything is by nature unsatisfactory, including yourself, including your other human friends, including your some ideal friends. Even they have karma and affliction, so they are also unsatisfactory. So don't try to idolize. Buddha said, do not rely on humans, but the Dharma. But here's all these people are worshiping deluded people covered in robes as they're enlightened. They're not. They're simply practitioners who are trying their best. Their best doesn't mean they're perfect. So therefore, we need to be kind to each other and walk towards the Dharma. When we see the suffering and karma of individuals, from ordinary to the fellow practitioner, or those who have you've been inspired by, they may have various inspiring qualities or not attributes, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. They're not enlightened. So to let the Dharma, turning the Dharma that we've heard, all the unsatisfactoriness is due to many causes and conditions, particularly afflictions of your own and those of others. So when you understand the true origin of sufferings, then we try to put a nail, we try to hit harder on the nail, So the truth of the cessation, in order to bring the truth of cessation, meaning the stoppage of the total suffering, we must continuously walk according to the wheel of Dharma that Buddha has shown. And that depends how good your self-discipline is. Discipline doesn't mean you mind other people's discipline and then think they are wrong, they are not right, and then try to publicize someone's karma and wrongdoing as if you're going to better the world. Even you quote somebody else, that's still the wrong way of doing. You need to suspend your own negative behavior and reaction and overreaction if you wanted to put the nail, hit on the nail to stop the suffering. To stop the suffering, total stoppage of suffering is the truth of cessation. But nobody has succeeded totally to do the stoppage of suffering. Why? Because they haven't followed the path, the truth of the path, noble truth of the path. That's the following the actual path. The path, of course, is not an easy path because people have seldom walked on that path. The world doesn't teach you to walk that path. They say, look after yourself first, Try to get a permanent job. All these are wrong doctrine. Of course, when you look after yourself, you become selfish. You try to get a permanent job, you're trying to develop in grasping. So all these are against the real teachings of the Buddha. It doesn't mean that you don't look after yourself or look after other beings, but look after each other doesn't mean you develop selfishness and grasping as things are real and permanent when they are not. So people who really have heard and heeded to the Buddha's first sermon or second or third I don't know why they classified the first sermon, second sermon, third sermon, because to me, every single sutra of Buddha contains all those contents of the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. So therefore, there was no time that Buddha was not teaching. If Buddha walked, Buddha sat, Buddha smiled, Buddha listened to a story. It's all teachings. Buddha, there is not a single activities of Buddha that is not teaching. Buddha's words and deeds are inconceivable. So to say that this is the first sermon, this is the second sermon, that is the third sermon, is only 3 sermons, is it? No, this is just how they sort of create a system of categorizing the teachings. But we cannot possibly, discriminate teachings of the Buddha like that, because all the Buddha's teaching has one and only purpose, that is to heal the suffering and the cause of sufferings. And that does not come in form of charms or ceremonies or rituals. They may be performed, but actual healing of the Dharma happens when we ourselves have this realization. So we have to gain the realization of Dharma. We have to study the scriptures. We have to meditate on the meanings of the scriptures. We have to listen on the scriptures, but we have to try to gain the realization. The realization is that you completely come to know what it is that you need to do, what it is that you need to stop doing, stop thinking, stop talking, stop feeling, me, now, my life, and this, that, all of this, we have to stop. So Dharma teaches us to stop the old, negative, selfish, short-sighted, emphasizing physical well-being, physical appearance. All of this needs to be stopped. Stopped, if not totally, gradually stop the importance of body, me, today, this life, But instead, importance of other, importance of the mind stream, of importance of future. And when with this in mind, then you develop gratitude. Then you will find yourself walking on the path. You will develop the right view. You will develop at least the intellectual conceptual understanding. Everything's impermanent, and not just these things changes, but everything else. A number of huge, amazing things have appeared, but they just disappear. So if you're losing some status, some situations, you should not be shocked. That's the nature of things. It's impermanent. It's the nature of things. It's not because of your fault or because someone else is doing this to you. It's the nature of existence, and whatever you're experiencing, a result of your own doing, whether you consciously remember or recognize or not. So have the good comprehension that your experience are a result of your own doing. It's very healthy, because as soon as you realize, even though you don't remember what you did, where you did this to warrant and to deserve this, most people say, why do I deserve to be like this? You don't recall, do you? Of course you should not be disappointed you can't recall. How many things you have recalled? We forget what we did only a few days ago. So how could we remember what we did 50 years ago, 30 years ago, in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our emotions? We don't know what are the consequences. They all have consequences. So the experiences you have are a result of your own actions, thoughts, and deeds and words. They're not a result of somebody else's doing. The moment you point a finger towards other person, you are not walking according to the wheel of Dharma. You can spin the prayer wheels, you can walk circumambulation clockwise, you can do all the kind of external behavior of a Buddhist, but the real Buddhist is Nangpa, means the insider. Inside, you need to go clockwise. Inside, you need to shave those there's hairy thoughts, those hairy thoughts in which you're completely densely covered. You need to shave regularly. You need to shave your real thought, real sort of cobwebs of wrong views and dreadlocks of wrong views. We need to shave those more. And so that's why in 21st century, we need to emphasize the Buddhism and its relevance and its pragmatism, it's I would say a practicality to better our way of doing and knowing and thinking, so that we are much more gentler, we are much more accepting, that we are much more forgiving, we are much more compassionate, we are much more patient. If you see these qualities as developing in you, then we have celebrated the Choekhor Duchen, turning the wheel of Dharma. We not only celebrate today on the 1st of August. By the way, today is 1st of August, but in Tibetan it's not 1st of August. Today is the 4th of the June, Tibetan June. But remember, you don't have to remember which day. Every day you should make this wheel, change your thoughts. You know, try to see what thoughts, what feelings, what opinions, what emotions you are holding that needs to be deleted, what kind of thoughts, emotions that you lack that need to be recruited. If you do that, you are consciously turning towards and following the wheel of Dharma's direction. You know, wheel of Dharma's direction. You actually are heading to the wheel of Dharma. So that's why it's very important that people celebrate Choekhor Duchen or Sakadawa communally, gathering as a prayer or lighting lots of lamps or circumambulating a temple or chanting or giving dana and all of that socially. But all those extra pouring out of your devotion externally, you can do so in right time and circumstances permit. But still, we are still not yet over with the pandemic. Still, there is a residue happening. Still, the post-pandemic kind of fear is still lurking in our mind. So we need to, even though we could not sometimes practice expressly to go out and do all of these things, doesn't mean you are not able to practice Dharma. Dharma is not externalization. Dharma is mainly just try to whitewash your thoughts. Try to paint your thoughts in a different way. And do not stay in those thoughts of poor me, why this is going to happen, why this will happen. If things will happen because the causes has been created. So you have to accept. As soon as you accept, then you are no longer whinging and complaining about that. You will get over it very quickly, I'll tell you. But because you are accepting the situation. As soon as you accept it, you're not rejecting and you're not resenting the past, and you're accepting the responsibility of whatever the consequences that has left in you as a result of that. So celebrating Choekhor Duchen, we need to reflect on the amazing contribution and great shining light the Buddha Dharma is into our lives, and whether one expressly do something together with friends. Like in Tibet, I remember going when I went on a pilgrimage quite a few times. They coincided Choekhor Duchen in Tibet. They all go out, carry the huge scriptures of the Kangyur and Tengyur. Everyone carries a couple of volumes on the back, and all the villagers gather into the temple, and then they walk around. They all go and circumambulate in the fields and whole valley carrying the text in order to spread the message of the Dharma by revealing the text, some actually reading the text, others carrying the text and reading out everywhere, so as to give the gift of the Dharma, which excels all the gifts. And they offer dana, they offer food, and they all bring picnic lunch, and they sit in the fields, resting the heavy, resting on the field. They unload the text and put on the side. They're all having picnic. We come across that quite a few times, and of course, and then some do go around, circumambulate around the stupas and temples. Others staying, chanting and doing meditation and so on. As I speak, His Holiness Shakyamuni Teaching Rinpoche and His Holiness Shakyamuni Trinzin 42nd Ratnavaji Rinpoche and His Holiness the 42nd Sakya Gyanavaja Rinpoche, and all the Khan family members and leaders of the Sakya are all celebrating his second Sakya Molam World Peace Prayer Festival as I speak of the 3 days. Today is the last day, which coincide the Choekhor Duchen. So they are reciting and chanting the praises of the Buddha, to the Buddha, 16 arats, and reciting the prayer of the Samandabhadra, and doing, and also I think His Holiness Sakya Tenzin Komatichen is giving long life empowerment as we speak. So as I conclude here, I suggest you to tune in to that Facebook live presentation called the Sakya Molam Europe. So they tend to stream that through a few channels. There's one channel called Sakya Friends or Sakya Molam Europe. They are both streaming them as we speak. So you're most welcome to join that, as if you have a mood to continue with that, and then you can do your chanting or prayer, whatever you know, and all meditate and try to dust your practice of Dharma, and try to bring up your mind in that state of mind, and try not to stay in this poor me, in my body, my health, lack of it, and all of these things are resisting the Dharma. All of these things are going against the Dharma. Of that, everything that you are going through are the same thing that has been many people are going through so many times. So do not overemphasize poor me, but this is nothing in comparison to other sentient beings in the world, in the war-ravaged countries, in the poverty-stricken countries, and poor wildlife animals, and things like that. Always relative. You make a positive comparison of your life, and do not think of poor me so much, and this body so much, my life, this life so much. But instead think of other people. Think of future mind stream. If I thought like this, I'll end up tomorrow with this attitude. So with this point of view, try to take responsibility. What not thought to host, what thought not to host, because of their negative consequences, and be conscious of that. That's a meditation. That's a prayer, answered prayer. Even if you say prayer, so what if they're not answered? Prayer can only be answered if you follow the actions and thoughts as sincerely as you can. So when Shakyamuni Buddha set the wheel of Dharma in motion at the age of 36, then since then until he passed away in Kushinagar, he's taught 84,000 Dharma discourses. So therefore, this is only the first discourse. The first discourse is celebrated as that which occurred in Sarnath on the deer path. And so since then, the wheel of Dharma is constantly turning, and it will benefit a number of sentient beings. It has benefited many people. So with this in mind, I would like to conclude here by short chanting of the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra. So with that, I'm glad all of you are able to join me with this. So with this, I will conclude here. Thank you very much, everybody, joining me and the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. Today is the Blessed Choekhor Duchen. So I'm glad that all of you could join us with this. And then, as just a reminder, tomorrow night we are starting our new term, teaching on the Uttara Tantra Shastra. So continuation of previous thing. If you have not already registered, you can always join on our website, the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. It's free to join because these teachings are offered by many of our benefactors' kindness that's enabled to offer us freely. So even you have not joined in the previous classes, you can join in anytime you like. So we will start that tomorrow evening. So you're most welcome to join. Thank you very much. Please stay safe. Thank you.